I am standing in front of what used to be my life's work, watching the last wisps of smoke curl up from the charred remains of Sunset Grill. 9 days ago, my own brother Marcus looked me straight in the eye and said those chilling words, "If I can't have it, you won't either." Who could have imagined that the person I raised, the brother I sacrificed everything for, would be capable of such destruction? The acrid smell of burned dreams fills my nostrils as I stare at 8 years of blood, sweat, and passion reduced to ash and twisted metal. Before I tell you this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories like this one. Trust me, you will want to hear how I turned this nightmare into the sweetest revenge imaginable. Let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Raphael. I am 32 years old, and Marcus is my younger brother at 28. We grew up in a middle-class family here in Ohio, but our childhood took a dramatic turn when our parents divorced. I was 16, Marcus was 12, and suddenly I found myself stepping into a role no teenager should have to fill. While other kids my age were worried about prom dates and college applications, I was figuring out how to be the steady presence my little brother needed. I made the hardest decision of my young life and dropped out of college to work full-time. Someone had to keep food on the table and make sure Marcus could finish high school properly. Even back then, Marcus had this entitled streak. He expected things to be handed to him, and somehow he always managed to charm his way out of taking responsibility for anything. But he was my brother, and I loved him fiercely. My dream since childhood had always been to open my own restaurant. I was obsessed with cooking shows, spent hours experimenting in our tiny kitchen, and knew that someday I would create a place where people could gather over incredible food. That dream sustained me through those difficult years of working construction during the day and washing dishes at Luigi's Pizzeria at night. 8 years ago, I finally started making that dream a reality. I began as a dishwasher at a local family restaurant, soaking up every piece of knowledge I could. The head chef, Jimmy, was this amazing Puerto Rican guy who took me under his wing. He taught me that cooking was not just about following recipes, it was about putting your heart into every single dish. Jimmy became like a father figure to me during those early years. I worked 2 jobs religiously for 3 years. Construction work from dawn until mid-afternoon, then straight to the restaurant until closing time. Every single paycheck went into my savings account. I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, drove a beat-up Honda with no air conditioning, and wore the same 3 work shirts until they fell apart. But I had a goal, and nothing was going to stop me from reaching it. When I finally had enough for a down payment, I found this abandoned restaurant space on the outskirts of town. The previous owner had gone bankrupt, and the place was in terrible condition. Broken windows, a kitchen full of ancient equipment, dining room tables held together with duct tape, but I could see its potential. I could envision families laughing over dinner, first dates, nervously unfolding over candlelight, celebration meals, marking life's important moments. I spent 6 months renovating that place with my own hands. My buddies Jake and Danny helped me on weekends, and slowly but surely we transformed that wreck into something beautiful. I painted every wall, installed new flooring, rebuilt the bar area, and upgraded the kitchen equipment piece by piece. When Sunset Grill finally opened its doors, I specialized in comfort food with a Latino twist, drawing on everything Jimmy had taught me about layering flavors and creating dishes that felt like home. That first year was tough, but gradually we built a loyal customer base. Regular families started coming in every Friday night. Business meetings happened over my signature pulled pork sandwiches. Young couples celebrated anniversaries at table 7 by the window. I knew every customer's name, their usual orders, how they liked their coffee. This was not just a business to me, it was my contribution to the community. Then Marcus showed up. He had just graduated from college with a business degree but had been unemployed for over a year. He started hanging around the restaurant, constantly eating free meals and making comments about how I could improve things. At first, I was happy to have family support, but his attitude quickly became problematic. Marcus would sit at the bar and loudly critique everything from the seasoning on the fries to the way I organized staff schedules. He acted like he was some kind of expert consultant despite having zero experience in the restaurant industry. When I politely suggested he might want to find his own job instead of spending every day at my place, he got defensive and accused me of not supporting family. The first real conflict came when Marcus approached me with what he called a business proposition. He wanted me to hire him as general manager with a salary that was frankly ridiculous for a small operation like mine. When I explained that I could not afford to pay someone that much, especially someone without relevant experience, he exploded. Bro, this place has potential, but you are running it all wrong, he declared, waving his hands around dismissively. You need someone with actual business education to help you grow this thing properly. I tried to stay calm and explain that while I appreciated his interest, I needed to maintain control over my own business. The restaurant was finally becoming profitable, and I could not risk making changes that might jeopardize that progress. Marcus did not take the rejection well. He stormed out that day, muttering about how I did not trust family and how ungrateful I was for everything he claimed he had done for me. From that point on, whenever Marcus came into the restaurant, there was this uncomfortable tension that even my customers started to notice. Sarah, my best waitress who had been with me for 5 years, pulled me aside one afternoon to express her concerns about the hostile atmosphere Marcus was creating. Over the following months, Marcus's behavior escalated from annoying to genuinely problematic. He started showing up every single day, acting like he was some kind of unofficial co-manager. He would rearrange supplies in the storage room without asking, criticize my staff scheduling decisions in front of employees, and generally undermine my authority at every turn. The situation reached a breaking point when I discovered that Marcus had been telling my staff that I did not know how to run a business properly. He told Sarah that I was wasting money on premium ingredients, when cheaper alternatives would work just fine. He criticized Tommy, my cook, for following my recipes instead of his better ideas for improving the menu. I finally confronted Marcus directly about his interference. Marcus, this is MY business. You need to stop acting like you have any say in how I run things here. That confrontation triggered an explosion I will never forget. Marcus's face turned red with rage as he screamed, "After everything you put me through growing up, after all the sacrifices I made, I deserved better than this." The twisted logic of his outburst left me speechless. He was somehow blaming me for the sacrifices I had made to support him during our difficult childhood. In his mind, my decision to drop out of college and work multiple jobs to keep us afloat had somehow victimized him rather than helped him. It was like he had rewritten our entire history to cast himself as the injured party. The impact on my business became undeniable. My staff felt confused about who was actually in charge, and the workplace tension was affecting their performance. Sarah, who had always been cheerful and efficient, started making mistakes on orders because she was constantly stressed about Marcus's criticism. Tommy began second-guessing his cooking decisions, worried that Marcus might berate him for using too much seasoning or not plating dishes the right way. Even worse, my regular customers started noticing the change in atmosphere. The Hendersons, a lovely elderly couple who came in every Wednesday for lunch, mentioned that the restaurant did not feel as welcoming as it used to. Mrs. and two Mace Peterson, who brought her book club for dinner once a month, asked if everything was okay because the staff seemed on edge lately. My revenue dropped 15% over 2 months as customer satisfaction declined. I was losing sleep, stress eating, and beginning to question whether I had made a terrible mistake in not just giving Marcus what he wanted to keep the peace. But deep down, I knew that rewarding his manipulative behavior would only make things worse. The situation took an ominous turn when Marcus presented me with an official proposal. He had actually consulted with a lawyer and drawn up partnership documents that would make him a 50-50 co-owner of my restaurant. The paperwork was professionally prepared and legally binding if I signed it. "Raphael, I am giving you this opportunity because we are family," he said in this patronizing tone that made my skin crawl. "I will bring business expertise to this operation, and we can take it to the next level together." I read through the documents carefully, and what I found was absolutely outrageous. Marcus wanted immediate 50% ownership without contributing a single dollar of investment. He wanted equal say in all business decisions, equal access to profits, and the authority to make changes without my approval. Essentially, he wanted me to hand over half of everything I had built in exchange for nothing but his presence and his business degree. "Marcus, this is completely insane," I told him, as calmly as I could manage. "You want half of something you never built, never invested in, and never worked to create. That is not how partnerships work." His response chilled me to the bone. Marcus looked me straight in the eye with this cold, calculating expression I had never seen before and said, If I cannot have it, you will not either. You have 48 hours to reconsider this offer. Without hesitation, I tore up those documents right in front of him. Get out of my restaurant, Marcus. Do not come back. As he walked toward the door, Marcus turned back with this eerily calm smile and delivered what sounded like a threat. You will regret this decision, bro. Blood is thicker than water, but money is thicker than blood. The 9 days following that confrontation were the strangest and most unsettling of my entire life. Marcus completely disappeared from my daily routine, which should have been a relief, but instead I felt this growing sense of dread that something terrible was building toward an inevitable explosion. Strange things started happening around the restaurant that I initially dismissed as coincidences. Delivery trucks would cruise slowly through our parking lot without making any stops, as if the drivers were studying our layout and routines. Unfamiliar cars began parking across the street with occupants who seemed to be watching our building rather than patronizing any of the nearby businesses. Sarah reported that several customers had come in asking oddly specific questions about our operating hours, our security system, and whether we stayed open late for private events. These were not the kinds of inquiries that typical customers made, and they always came from people who ordered very little food and paid close attention to our staff routines. Tommy mentioned receiving strange phone calls at the restaurant, where the caller claimed to be from our insurance company, asking detailed questions about our coverage policies, the value of our equipment, and our procedures for handling emergencies. When I called our actual insurance agent, she confirmed that no one from their office had made any such calls. My instincts screamed that Marcus was behind these suspicious activities, but I had no concrete proof. I decided to take precautionary measures anyway. I installed additional security cameras, changed all the locks on both the front and back entrances, and started varying my daily routines so that anyone watching would have trouble predicting my schedule. Despite these precautions, I could not shake the feeling that Marcus was planning something devastating. The brother I had raised and protected for so many years had transformed into someone I no longer recognized, someone capable of actions that the old Marcus would never have considered. On that Tuesday night, I was sound asleep when my phone rang at 2:30 in the morning. The caller ID showed the number for our local fire department, and immediately, I knew that my worst fears were about to be confirmed. Mr. Raphael, your restaurant is on fire. The fire chief's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. You need to come to the scene immediately. I threw on clothes and raced through empty streets toward what had been my life's work. From 3 blocks away, I could see the orange glow lighting up the night sky. As I got closer, the reality hit me like a physical blow to the chest. Sunset Grill was completely engulfed in flames, with massive tongues of fire shooting through the roof and smoke billowing into the starless night. Fire trucks surrounded the building, their red and blue lights casting eerie shadows on the faces of firefighters who were fighting a losing battle against the inferno. I stood on the sidewalk watching 8 years of dreams, sacrifice, and hard work being consumed by flames that seemed almost alive in their hunger for destruction. The fire chief approached me with grim news. Mr. Raphael, I am sorry to tell you that this fire was deliberately set. We found evidence of accelerant in multiple locations throughout the building. This was definitely arson. As I stood there watching my restaurant burn, memories flooded through my mind like scenes from a movie. I remembered the night before our grand opening when Jimmy came by to wish me luck, and we shared a beer while admiring the freshly painted dining room. I thought about Mrs. Henderson's face when I surprised her with a birthday cake on her 80th birthday celebration. I recalled the nervous excitement of that young couple who got engaged at table 7 and how the entire restaurant erupted in applause when she said yes. Sarah and Tommy arrived within minutes of getting my calls, and we stood together in stunned silence, watching everything we had built together disappear into smoke and ash. Sarah was crying, and Tommy kept shaking his head in disbelief, muttering about how someone could do such a horrible thing to good people. The fire investigator found clear evidence of professional arson techniques. Gasoline had been poured in strategic patterns throughout the dining room and kitchen to ensure maximum damage and rapid spread. The back door showed signs of forced entry, and someone had deliberately disabled our main security cameras before starting the fire. However, one crucial detail worked in our favor. A security camera from the convenience store across the street had captured partial footage of a figure in a dark hoodie leaving our building just minutes before the fire started. The person's build height and distinctive walking gait were unmistakably familiar to me. The police reviewed the footage and agreed that the suspect strongly resembled Marcus. When they went to question him at his apartment, Marcus initially claimed he had been home all night sleeping. However, his neighbor Mrs. Kim reported seeing Marcus leave his building around 2 in the morning, which directly contradicted his alibi. The final piece of evidence came when police found a gasoline can discarded in a dumpster 3 blocks from the restaurant. Marcus's fingerprints were all over the container, and traces of the same accelerant used in the fire were found on his shoes and clothing when they executed a search warrant on his apartment. When I confronted Marcus at the police station after his arrest, the mask finally slipped completely. The brother I thought I knew disappeared entirely, replaced by someone consumed with jealousy, resentment, and an entitlement so toxic that it had driven him to destroy what he could not possess. "You left me no choice," Marcus screamed through his tears. "You took everything from me. This restaurant was supposed to be ours. I gave up my childhood so you could chase your stupid dreams." The complete reversal of reality in his accusations was breathtaking. Somehow, in Marcus's twisted perception, my sacrifices to support him had become his sacrifices for me. My success had become his failure, and my refusal to hand over half of my life's work had justified burning it all to the ground. Marcus was charged with arson, destruction of property, and attempted insurance fraud. As I watched him being led away in handcuffs, I felt a complex mixture of heartbreak and determination. The brother I had loved and protected was gone, replaced by someone whose actions had revealed the true depths of his character. But I refused to let his destruction define the end of my story. The first few weeks after the fire were the darkest period of my adult life. The insurance payout covered only 60% of my losses because the building had been older and the policy had depreciation clauses I had not fully understood. Sarah and Tommy were suddenly unemployed through no fault of their own, and I felt responsible for their financial hardship as well as my own devastating loss. I spent 2 weeks barely leaving my apartment, wallowing in depression and rage over what Marcus had done to all of us. The injustice of the situation felt overwhelming. I had worked honestly for everything I had achieved, treated my employees, fairly served my community with pride, and tried to be a good brother, despite years of manipulation and entitlement. None of that had mattered when Marcus decided to destroy what I would not share. The turning point came when Jimmy, my old mentor, showed up at my apartment with a bag of groceries and a stern lecture about giving up on my dreams. "Raphael, food is not about the building," he told me while making coffee in my kitchen. "Food is about the heart, the passion, the connection you create with people. That fire burned down your restaurant, but it cannot burn down who you are as a chef and a businessman." What happened next restored my faith in human goodness and community support. My regular customers had started a GoFundMe campaign called Bring Back Sunset Grill without me even knowing about it. Sarah had created the page with photos from happier times at the restaurant and testimonials from people whose lives had been touched by our little corner establishment. The community response was overwhelming. Within 1 month, over 300 people had contributed $45,000 toward rebuilding efforts. The donations came with heartfelt messages that brought me to tears. Mrs. Henderson wrote about how our Wednesday lunches had been the highlight of her week since her husband passed away. The young couple who got engaged at table 7 sent a photo from their wedding with a note saying they wanted their future children to experience the same warmth and hospitality that had made their engagement night so special. Local business owners offered discounted services for the rebuilding effort. The hardware store owner, Mr. Rodriguez, promised materials at cost. The electrical contractor who had worked on the original renovation volunteered his labor for free. Even competitors from other restaurants reached out to offer temporary employment for Sarah and Tommy until I could reopen. This outpouring of support crystallized a realization that changed my entire perspective on what had happened. Marcus had tried to destroy my dream through fire, but he had actually revealed something far more valuable than any building or equipment. He had shown me that I had created something that mattered to people, something that had become woven into the fabric of our community in ways I had never fully appreciated. I decided that the best revenge would not be pursuing Marcus for additional damages or spending my energy on hatred and bitterness. The best revenge would be building something even better than what he had destroyed, proving that destructive actions ultimately fail when they are met with constructive responses. Using the insurance payout, the GoFundMe donations, and a small business loan, I found a better location with higher foot traffic and more parking. I designed the new restaurant with a phoenix rising from ashes, theme incorporating artistic elements that told the story of resilience and community support overcoming adversity. Phoenix Grill opened 6 months after the fire with upgraded equipment, an expanded menu featuring more premium options, and a design that felt both familiar and fresh. I hired Sarah as assistant manager with a significant salary increase and profit-sharing arrangement. Tommy became head cook with expanded creative control over menu development and the authority to train new kitchen staff. My marketing strategy focused on the authentic story of rebuilding after betrayal, emphasizing how community support had made the comeback possible. I never mentioned Marcus by name in interviews or promotional materials, but the media coverage of our Rise from Ashes story resonated powerfully with people who understood the challenges of overcoming setbacks and family conflicts. The grand opening weekend exceeded my wildest expectations. Lines stretched around the block with customers who wanted to be part of our new beginning. Local television news covered the reopening as a feel-good story about community solidarity triumphing over destructive actions. The mayor even stopped by to congratulate us and declared a testament to the entrepreneurial spirit that makes our city great. Within the first month, Phoenix Grill's revenue surpassed the best month Sunset Grill had ever achieved. We expanded services to include catering for local businesses and weekend brunch featuring creative breakfast dishes that became locally famous. I hired 3 additional staff members and began planning for potential expansion to a second location. The success felt different this time because it was built on a foundation of authentic community relationships rather than just my individual effort and determination. Sarah's profit-sharing arrangement meant she was financially invested in our continued growth. Tommy's creative input resulted in signature dishes that reflected both his talents and customer preferences. Our new staff members were chosen not just for their skills, but for their commitment to the welcoming atmosphere that had always defined my vision. During this period of rebuilding and growth, Marcus sent several letters from jail attempting to apologize and asking for forgiveness. I chose not to respond to these communications because I needed to focus my emotional energy on positive developments rather than relitigating past betrayals. Forgiveness would come in its own time, but it would not include forgetting the lessons I had learned about protecting my dreams from those who would exploit family relationships for personal gain. The most profound moment of this entire journey came when I made the decision to visit Marcus one final time before he was transferred to state prison. I wanted to face him not as the devastated victim of his arson, but as someone who had transformed his destructive actions into something constructive and meaningful. "I forgive you, Marcus," I told him through the prison visitor window. "I hope you find your own path towards something positive when you get out of here." Marcus broke down completely during that conversation, offering what seemed like genuine remorse for the first time since our childhood. He acknowledged that his jealousy and entitlement had driven him to actions that hurt not just me, but Sarah, Tommy, and all the customers who had lost their gathering place because of his selfishness. As I walked away from that prison visit, I felt the closure I needed to move forward without the burden of anger and resentment that had been weighing on my spirit. Marcus would serve his time and hopefully learn from his mistakes, but his actions no longer had the power to define my future or limit my potential. Phoenix Grill continues to thrive as I share this story with you. We have become more than just a restaurant. We are a symbol of resilience, community support, and the power of constructive responses to destructive actions. Sarah is now developing plans for our second location, and Tommy has created a cookbook featuring our most popular recipes, along with the stories behind their development. Sometimes the people closest to us become our biggest obstacles, not because they mean to hurt us, but because their own pain and limitations prevent them from celebrating our success. When you stay true to your values and refuse to let others' actions define your worth, you discover strength you never knew existed. Phoenix Grill is not just a restaurant. It is proof that you can rise from any ashes stronger, wiser, and more connected to what truly matters. The best revenge is not destruction, it is construction. Building something so beautiful, so meaningful, and so enduring that it makes their attempts to tear you down look pathetic in comparison. Every satisfied customer, every successful night, every positive review is a testament to the power of persistence over sabotage, community over isolation, and love over hatred. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? Share your thoughts in the comments below and please hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real stories about overcoming life's biggest challenges and share this video with anyone who needs to hear that setbacks can become comebacks with the right mindset and community support. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that your dreams are stronger than anyone's attempts to destroy them.